as close as we can get to what we've experienced, but I think any of those will really tell you it's the story they put in the experience are two different. The story they make up and the experience are really two different things. They're just trying to do their best to do it. So it's not as wrong. It's just their metaphor for what happened to them.
And have you seen the orbs that he can summon?
No, I didn't get to. I didn't get to see.
Have you seen the videos of them? They're all over his Instagram. He goes out into the middle of the woods or in his backyard even. And he came here and did it on the beach for me and Steve. And he basically like prays and for these angels to show up, and these orbs sure as shit they show up and they move around in different directions. I haven't been able to come up with any conventional explanation for what they are. I mean, they're real. I saw them. We filmed them, and he can do this everywhere he goes. And he's done it on camera in many places. Many times. They're all over his Instagram.
Yeah, I have heard about that, and I don't doubt it.
What do you think? What do you make of that? What do you think that could be?
These are some of the things I'm going to talk to him about, and maybe I should wait for that. But I can tell you that he has been picked out by the larger consciousness system to help wake other people up and see bigger pictures. The system does that. It does that in many ways. A lot of it is through personal experience, like he had. And remember, we are to grow up, become lower entropy consciousness by making better choices. And that's what we do. And our growth is the system's growth because we're just a part of the system. We're a piece of it. So the system wants us to succeed, wants us to evolve, wants us to move toward love. And it will do things that help not only open an individual's mind, but help open lots of minds. So it'll do things that are just not understandable. It'll do things that are just off the wall and have no explanation, because that opens people's minds to realizing that it's not just this physical world that the physicists tell us about. There's something else going on. There's other things happening. That cracks open the mind, and we're getting to a point, humanity's getting to a point where we need to take bigger steps more quickly about growing up. That's a quickening that's coming over the next several decades. So the system is particularly trying to help us grow up, and it picked a person like Chris, partly because Chris asked for the help, and partly because he was a real decent, real straightforward, honest human being that they thought would make a good person to help share that. Also, that people have NDEs.
Turn left.
So then,
Bob Riggs has successfully joined the channel.
Tell their friends, write a book, and now hundreds of thousands of people get to benefit and get to grow from that experience. It opens their minds. The crop circles. I've been over to the UK, walked around in those fields, and looked at the plants bent over and read the research and so on. And overnight, when there's no light, usually no moon, and in one night you get 20 acres covered with some kind of fantastic, often mathematical. And these aren't straight lines. Straight lines, if it was straight lines, probably a surveying team could do it in 3 weeks, if there was 10 of them. But these nice curved lines and so on that are perfectly in symmetry. Well, we look at that and we say, that's impossible. It can't happen. Nobody could do that in the dark in one night, covering tens of acres often.
And you can't see them unless you're in an airplane, right?
Well, no, you can't appreciate them unless you're in an airplane, because then you get that view. So that's if you're not. Surveyors could maybe do that, but probably not, because they trample all over everything, and the way getting there is just trying to make all their angles and stuff, and they can't do curves worth a damn. They can just do straight lines, so it's pretty much impossible. So what do the people think? They think, well, it's impossible, we can't do it, so therefore, that must be aliens doing it. But that's just another mind opener. with the aliens. The system of mind over the larger consciousness system is doing it, and it's doing it to help crack our minds open, because we're going to have to do some serious growing in the next couple of decades. So it's kind of speeding that process up, and it picks people for the NDEs if they're not going to die, and it knows that by the probabilities. You can say, well, the probability of this person is going to come back is high. All right, so let's give
Turn left, then turn right.
Hundreds of thousands, millions of people will have their mind cracked open a little bit to reality being more interesting and more complex than just this physical world. So that's kind of where Chris came in. He was picked to have these experiences.
Turn right.
And that's why he was given the gift of healing. He was given the orbs, because he's demonstrating to people that these strange, unexplainable things are real. It's part of our reality. Opens minds to a bigger picture, and that will help us make this transition that we're going to all go through in the next couple of decades.
Do you think there is a characteristic, a common characteristic that can be found in people that gives them a stronger connection to this monolithic consciousness that Chris Bledsoe seems to be tapped into? Like, are there certain people who have a stronger connection than others? And is there a way to strengthen your connection?
Sure. Everybody has the potential to do all of these things. It's not that you have to be special to do them. So the way it works is that you come here, you make choices. By those choices, you evolve and you get more. We've already talked about that. The next time you come around, in your next lifetime, and I have multiple lifetimes in my model because it was a logical necessity, not because I think, that having multiple lifetimes, reincarnation was a cool idea, but it was logically necessary.
In a quarter of a mile,
so,
turn right.
You start with the quality of consciousness that you earned up to that point. So you make good choices, you are helpful to people, you care about people, and that means you level up a little bit.
Turn right, then turn left onto the slip road.
But not with any of the knowledge, not with any of the intellectual knowledge of it, because you have to just apply who you are to new situations, make good choices. So in a way, you have to re-earn it. But it's who you are. It's easier for you to make good choices because you've learned to get rid of a lot of your fear. So yes, those people have a higher quality of consciousness, just go around with good choices. They then have an easier time of doing these things because they're more connected to consciousness, to the larger conscious system, and more caring. That kind of person has an easy time doing it. But every kid, it's something you can learn, it's something you can practice, and you feel at it. Practice, it's not good. They spend life meditating and doing these things, and many of them can heal. They can do lots of that stuff. It's not because they train.
In 2 miles, take the interchange on the right.
Because of the quality that their mind has reached. But you can learn it. You can ride. We try to do on the way in the life right at the bottom of the road, so you can just experiment with everything. Everything going on, we experiment with it. And I will tell you that being able to heal with your intent is probably the easiest paranormal thing that anybody can do.
Really?
it's not a hard one. Yeah, everybody thinks, oh, that would be hard. It's one of the easiest things. It's much easier to be effective if the result has uncertainty around it. The more uncertainty, the easier it is for you to change it. So somebody's health is very uncertain because we don't know enough about biology and physiology to really know what's going to happen next. Some people have stage 4 cancer and given a month to live, and 2 weeks later they don't have any cancer at all. So there's lots of uncertainty as to what the outcome might be. If you have a real bad illness of some sort, people get over it. Some people die from it, but there's lots of uncertainty.
In half a mile, take the interchange on the right.
And when you modify those probabilities, then you'll raise the probability of that person getting better. Doesn't mean they have to get better. You just raise the probability.
Right.
Take the interchange on the right.
The probability was to start with. If it was a million to one that this person would get better,
right,
because they had 10 biopsies from 10 different doctors and they all said, it's going to kill you in a week, then the probability is very small that you're
versus somebody that gets hit by a freight train, and their body's completely destroyed and they're on life support or something like that.
Yeah.
It's going to be very low probability.
Yeah, very low probability you're going to do anything about it. So if the probability is a million to one, you may
in
make
800 feet, turn left onto the slip road.
1,000 to one.
Turn left onto the slip road.
Change it that much, but you're still not likely to get it because it's so you can change probabilities. It doesn't mean you can manipulate them to be whatever you want. Depends on the uncertainty that's involved in what it is that you're trying to do. That's a key part of it. But,
make a U-turn.
Healing is a simple thing because
turn right onto the slip road.
And it's a thing that's easy to get focused on. It's not abstract. It's a more solid thing. So you can. I would say that if you started working on healing in a month,
head west.
You'd see enough progress that you would convince yourself that you're being effective with it. It's just not hard to do. There's just some techniques, some tools that you can use, and you just kind of practice at it, and you'd be surprised at how effective you can be in a short period of time. It's one of the easiest paranormal things to be able to learn to do. Now, you may not be great at it. You may not be able to change everything you want, but you will have periods when your mind is more in the right spot. Low noise, high power, low noise, and good focus. And then you'll be more effective.
You got to practice this mindfulness stuff.
You have to practice in order to do that, but that's just natural to anybody because we're consciousness. We get to affect those probabilities, and those probabilities is what determines what happens here.
So you mentioned you were just at this psychic games thing, and there's a woman I saw a video of that I don't know if we watched it yesterday on here or not, but I saw the video. It was like a short YouTube video of this girl who puts on 10 masks over her eyes and completely blocks her vision, and is able to read a piece of paper that random piece of paper they put in front of her. How is that happening?
It's done. It's just real-time remote viewing. You can remote view something that's not in front of you. You can remote view the Eiffel Tower while you're sitting here in Florida. If that's the coordinates you're given, you can see things. You're getting that data out of this database that I talked about. So that data's in the database, and you can see what's there. So you can go to the database and see what's here, what's just right in front of you. And you can do that in real time, and that's called seeing without eyes, or they have a lot of other names with it, but it works fine.
Can you do it?
I actually spent about 2 weeks working on it, and I was getting close to it, but I wasn't really interested in doing it as much as I was interested in finding out how they taught people to do it. But yes, if I've worked at it, if I spent 2 weeks, 3 weeks at it, then I'd be able to do it. But you have to practice these things. It's like anything else. If you don't practice them a lot, then you get rustier.
Sure.
You won't lose it altogether, but build
the muscle.
Yeah, you have to keep the muscle, tuned up.
Steve, can you find the video of her doing that?
Yeah, the internet's slow. It's taking forever to load.
Oh, wow.
But the scene without eyes, you talk about 10 masks. You can take somebody, put them in another room.
Right.
You can put them in another room and turn all the lights off and seal all the windows with black paper so that there's no light in that room. Put them in a basement with no windows, turn off all the lights, and put a mask on them if you like, and then you can go to some other part of the house and you can read the book that they have, or you can see what they're doing. It's just getting data from the database. It's real-time remote viewing, rather than remote viewers think they have to go out and see something at a particular place. That's remote viewing. They don't realize they're just getting data out of a database.
Has this ever been scientifically proven to work?
Yeah. Scientifically, not.
The problem with this stuff is it's not hard science, it's squishy science.
Well,
which is and it kind of exposes how the scientific method may not be like the holy grail of figuring stuff out in this world, but you can't measure this, you can't put it on a scale, you can't put it in a beaker and weigh it and quantify it. It's so much different.
No, what you said is exactly right. The scientific method is a really great method for doing the science of the objective world. It isn't worth a damn in the subjective world. The objective world, every scientist, wherever they are, doing the same experiment will have to get the same answer. It's not dependent on the scientist or the location or anything else.
Right.
The experiment will work the same way everywhere. Well, the objective world is like that. The subjective world isn't like that at all. In the subjective world, everybody's mind is different. Everybody's reality is different. Everybody's attitudes and feelings and beliefs and fears, all of that are different. So in the subjective world, nothing is always going to be the same for all the people everywhere. It all has to do with an individual and their consciousness. So that scientific method is only good for the objective world. It means nothing in the subjective world. But is it real? Sure. When I was taking this course of the Seeing Without Eyes, trying to understand how it worked, there was a man came in who was blind. And totally blind. And he came in and walked across the room, took off his jacket and hung it on a hook. And we're thinking, is he really blind? He didn't feel that hook or anything. He just knew where it was. And he had taken this course. He had learned to see without his eyes. So somebody went to the back of the room and they got a book. There was a bookshelf back there with about 20, 30 books on it. And they picked up a book. And this was a children's book. And they handed him the book. He opened it up. And he started to describe. He rubbing his fingers on the pages. And he was describing, this is a picture of a giraffe. And there's a little child over here. And there's a red balloon up in the corner. And so he described all the picture. And then he turns the book around. And we can see he's described it accurately. So then he turns 3 or 4 pages and does another one. So somebody asked him, he says, well, how do you do that? And he said, well, I do it with my fingers. I can see through my fingers. Well, that was just, remember I talked about tools? People have tools. They make up metaphors to explain what they're doing. That was his metaphor because he was blind. He saw through his fingers with Braille. So he had that same metaphor. He'd see with his fingers. He wasn't seeing with his fingers. He's getting data out of the database. And that's where he was getting the pictures from. But in his mind, he was seeing with his fingers. So if you put the book out where he couldn't touch it, he wouldn't be able to do it because he believes that he's using his fingers. So these are tools that we make up. But this blind guy was able to see the book perfectly. He described the colors, and these weren't pictures that were raised. These are just printed. Right. This is ink on a piece of paper, mass-produced, and there was no feel different to any of it. It all just felt like paper. So, yes, you see that happening. So somebody asked me, is it real? Of course it's real. And then one of the students there was a lady from Scandinavia.
Steve, this is the video.
It was a lady from Scandinavia, and she was one of the people that very quickly did learn to see without her eyes in this course. And I took her and walked her around outside. I held on to her so she wouldn't fall off a curb or something. And I asked her questions like, what color is the house that's in front of you? And she told me, it's blue. How many garbage cans are outside? 5. What color are they? 3 are green, 2 are blue. And a car pulled up, parked. So I walked her over to the car and I said, "What's the license plate?" The car just came from anywhere. So it's not like this could be programmed or whatever. We're just outside looking at things. And this was someplace in Germany. She didn't live here. This wasn't her territory. So she read the license plate and walked up to a door that had some kind of sign. Sometimes it was like this, some text. She could read it. And I checked her blindfold, and that she was obviously seeing without her eyes. So I experienced a blind man, and there was probably 5 or 6, 7 of the 20 people there, probably 8 of them were able to see without their eyes in 2 weeks. These are adults. That's awfully quick. Usually adults take longer. Now the lady who teaches that says, give her a 5-year-old and she'll teach them in an hour.
Right.
Because they don't have the beliefs that we have.
Yes.
And it turned out, the thing I learned at that course
kicks in. He wants you to check his stream.
Yeah, it's all about belief was the main thing. I asked the lady that
you know what that's mean. I don't mean that.
How are you able to do this? And she said, I cheat.
Tell Tomcats I'll be there, but I'm kind of busy right now.
Mask, and that's how I can see. So I
Thank you, brother.
Cheating was impossible, but she had to convince herself that she was cheating in order to be able to do it. So the people who were there, who were more right-brained, could more easily convince themselves that they were doing it some way. That was okay with them. The left-brain people, the techies, the engineers and so on were there, they needed more facts. They couldn't, you see, I'm a physicist, so I know that light comes in around the edge of a mask. That light has to bounce 3 or 4 times before it gets to the eyeball. And after light bounces, it doesn't have any information at all. But this lady didn't know that because she wasn't a physicist. So she saw a little bit of straight light coming in there, and that then justified in her mind how she could see without eyes. Wow. So once she got past the belief problem, and I realized that was the key thing, was getting people past their belief that it was impossible. And as soon as they got past that, it was easy. And that's why 5-year-olds are easy, because they don't have that ingrained belief that this is impossible. To a 5-year-old, life is magical, Yes. All kinds of things happen, and they have no idea why. They just do. So if
they're curious.
They're curious. So if the adult says, "Here, you can see without your eyes. You read this book." Well, no, I can. Okay, and they can with just a little coaching. So it's the belief thing that we turn off those things because we're told that they're impossible. So then I went around to everybody in there who was successful, who couldn't read without their eyes, through the mask. These are big masks. The masks go way out here and way up here. They're not little tiny masks. They're really big masks that cover you. And every one of them that was adults that were successful said that they cheated. But I was also wearing a mask. I know what that mask was like because I had one on too. And I could make it such that you could see a little glow someplace. But I knew that glow had no information in it whatsoever.
And, also children. I mean, children just on a different, from a different perspective, children, it seems like they have a deeper connection to something that we, as we get older and we get adapted to the rigid frameworks of our society, and the more we start relying on technology and using technology to compensate for other things, it seems like these abilities that may be ancient inside of us have atrophied, and they atrophy more from birth to the time we get older and we start getting used to technology and being brought up in this technological world we live in. And like newborn children, they seem to have, like with those telepathy tapes, they seem to have more of a tuned extrasensory thing that's inside of them that we don't have. And it makes me wonder how many more things are out there that we can't detect. You know, like a smell. Like if we didn't have a nose, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't have any idea of these smells or aromas that are all around us, right? So like how many things are out there that exist that we just don't have sensory organs to perceive?
Turn left.
Then,
Then,
a lot of things that
sharp
exist
left.
outside of our sensory organs. Our sensory organs just follow the rules in the rule set of this physical world. So we're trapped inside the physical world with our physical senses. But we can see, hear, taste, smell, and touch things that are non-physical. But again, it's us taking information and turning it into physical metaphors. Okay, so you get information and it just
Sharp left. Then, turn right onto the slip road.
Eventually you just learn to accept that, but initially you tend to hear things. I heard a voice and it said it. So you're taking the information and you're
Turn
turning
right
it
onto the slip road.
into language because it's easier for you to hear the fact than just now. So people tend to hear things more initially. Eventually, you don't question the just knowing, and you don't have to hear it to make it real.
Mm-hmm.
You just get the information.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that information that's in that database is available to any consciousness. It's, not only are children more adept at that than adults, but your children are more intuitive at 2 and 3 years old than you are now. A long shot. Your dog and your cat are more intuitive than you are. The kids who had autism, their neural processing wasn't available. That was not working for them. The hearing and speaking and whatever wasn't working very well for them. It was kind of chaotic. So what did they do? They developed their intuitive processes. You have 2 different pathways that you process information. One is logical intellectual path. Okay, that's what most advanced adults use all the time. The other is an intuitive path. The logical path is logical. The intuitive path is not logical. You just get information. There's no reason overloaded with information. It's just there and you download it. You query that database with your intent. And when you take the one, and there it is. That's the code. And you get it. Most people get information like that all the time, but they refuse it because they believe that there's nothing there. Just like you see with their eyes, people couldn't see without eyes as long as they, but once they could somehow account for it, then they could do it. So, yes, children are much more connected to us. Children, we think that young children, 2-year-olds, who don't speak very much, just a few words, and 3-year-olds whose vocabulary is very, very small, we think they don't understand. They understand a whole lot more. They're not getting it through language, they're getting it intuitively.
Right.
They understand a whole lot more. Your dog understands you more through the intuitive sense, not through language. Dogs don't do language, but they know. You're thinking about, I think I'll get up and take the dog for a walk. And you think about that, and 30 seconds later, your dog's running around in little circles in front of the door. He's anticipating the walk that you were thinking about. They pick up those feelings. All consciousness embedded, so you can have communication with your dog. That's not that hard. All you have to do is make a mind-to-mind connection with your dog and realize you're not going to get language, you're going to get feeling. That's their world is in terms of feeling what they feel like. And you can find they feel sometimes upset and sometimes annoyed and sometimes like having fun. But you can make that communication and you can communicate your feelings to the dog and they will get that. So our
in a quarter of a mile, take the exit on the right.
And you can, just like on the internet, to look at somebody's website, you got to go up and put in their URL. And then if you don't want to look at it, you click on the little X in the upper right-hand corner. You can do the same thing. You can open up a portal so that you connect with this consciousness, and you can close it off. And you do that all with your intent. Now, the people you're close to, like your kids and your family and so on, your best friends, well, you're more open. You get their ideas, you get their thoughts, you can kind of feel their feelings, you know where they are. If you pay attention, you can. People who you don't know, you generally don't connect with them until you want to. Oh, I just met George, or George telling me about his sick mother, I go in and see how she's doing. Then you can open up that connect. You can find the data in the database and tell you exactly what she's doing. And you can look at the database and say, what's the probability she's going to get better on her own over the next month? And you can say, I want health here, I want time here, and you can see a curve.
Right.
And if you want to say, well, how good is that probability? I want to see error bars of two standard deviations, and you put curves along the curve, and it gives you 2 standard deviations in probable error. The information's there,
right?
And you can determine the output format. You can request any output format. It'll come in graphs, it'll come in colors, it'll come in images of whatever you relate to. The system will give you the output that you want. So these are tools. Everybody has these abilities. Mind-to-mind communication is a great way for parents to communicate with their teenagers. That's a really good example. Because teenagers want to make their own choices. That's what they're doing. They're becoming adults, and they need to start making their own choices, and they don't like it when mom or dad tell them what they should be doing or what they should be feeling or how they should be acting, so they push that away. So sometimes it's really hard to communicate with your teenagers, because if you say, no, you really ought to go right instead of left here, they'll tend to go left because they need to do it on their own in their own way. So you can talk to them mind to mind and give them some guidance, as long as you don't try to give them direction. If you say, do this, do that, that will backfire. They don't want that. But if you go in and say, there's other possibilities here that you haven't thought of. You should consider this and consider that. Now you're being helpful. You're not trying to overwhelm their free will. You're trying to give them information that they can use. They'll accept that. And that can be a very helpful tool for helping give your kids guidance that they can accept. So, a lot of us do this anyway. Right brain people are very good at it. Right brainers, people who are intuitive, they're very good at it, and some just pick it up very naturally. Often, the people who are good at it are people who had very troubled childhood, spending time in another reality, escaping this reality into an imaginary world. So they train themselves to be open to outside information, outside of this reality, and that's when they were 4 and 5 and 6 and 8 and 10, and now they're 30 or 40, and they're naturals, they're mediums, they're this, they're that, by escaping a dysfunctional childhood. So you often will find the connection between people who seem to be gifted and people who had to escape. That's why they learn these skills, so they could escape to an imaginary place that was better. In their mind, it was an imaginary place.
There are some people who think that that trauma is one of the common things that help people become more open to this and more intuitive and have this sort of sense. You're talking about things like Chris Bledsoe has, whatever. I mean, obviously he's been through a lot of trauma, but I think there's people like Jeffrey Kripal who studied this extensively, that people who have undergone lots of trauma throughout their lives, and especially during their childhood, have more of this, a stronger connection to this.
In 2 miles, take the interchange on the right.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. People who have very serious trauma are people who kind of reached a dead end, reached the end of the rope, so to speak. We're put in a situation where all the normal news, ideas, and whatever's aren't available to them anymore. And when you're in that, until you start searching for another way, you start opening up to other things. So, you know, a lot of the people that are also into spiritual things, the teachers and people, you find that they first went through what's called the dark night of the soul. They were miserable people, they were self-centered, and this and that, and life got tougher and tougher, and they went down the spiral until they got to this bottom part where it just couldn't get any worse. And they throw up their hands and give up, and, you know, they either want to die or they need something, but they can't quit. And in that moment of desperation, they actually open up to something outside of them. They stop the interacting with the physical world, and they start opening up inside.
Yeah.
And that then becomes the beginning of a
In
whole
half a mile, take the interchange on the right.
Keep it going, and then they become spiritual teachers later.
Right.
But
Yeah.
a lot of that's where it starts. And so that's trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That's just another that's like a self-induced trauma rather than something coming out and, you know, hitting you. It's something you do to yourself, but that kind of puts people...
Take the interchange on the right.
Having to open up to other things, because just the normal pathways aren't working.
In half a mile, turn right onto the slip road.
Reason. So they open up, you know, like Chris Bledsoe said, he was desperate, and he was Crohn's, it was killing him, and he basically said, I need help. He was at the bottom. He couldn't function. He couldn't do the things he needed to do. He couldn't earn a living. He couldn't, you know, he couldn't do the things he had to do for his family and so on. So he got desperate. When you're desperate, instead of chugging along in the physical, doing this physical thing and that physical thing, you're like, I need help. Right. I need to change. Something has to change. Mm-hmm. And you open yourself up to something. And something happens, particularly if the system says, oh, here's a good person we could use. We can give them some insight and some abilities, and they will spread the word that life is not just all tied up in this nifty physical box. There's other things going on besides.
Right. So you think that this information system that we are a part of is slowly over time becoming lower entropy, meaning that we're becoming more open, we're becoming more loving, more one? Do you think this evolution has been on a non-stop linear
In 2 miles, take the exit on the right.
First conscious being came into existence?
Yes, but it's not linear. So in the beginning, you know, when we were cave people traveling in small tribes kind of things, the world was a very tough and harsh place, and there was a lot of violence. If you saw somebody else had something you needed, you were them. So you made that wrong decision to take their stuff for yourself. But so we start there. You know, controlled power, force is kind of the ethic. And humans have been walking around on the planet for roughly 200,000 years, depending on who you read. that can be a much different number, but around 200,000 years is where Homo sapiens been here. And you can think of that change was very slow in the beginning, very, very slow. So I'm looking here at a graph. I'll do it backwards so that people who are viewing it can see it forwards. But let's say this is time on the horizontal axis.
In half a mile, take the exit on the right.
Here. So it just doesn't go up much. It stays just maybe a little tiny bit. So then we got the civilization where people started interacting more and being more interdependent, and it goes up a little bit. Then it starts to go and it shoots up. Mm-hmm. So that's because it's an
Take the exit on the right.
The more you learn, the easier it is to learn more. You know, learning is that way.
Yeah.
When you first start learning, it's difficult. You need to learn numbers. You need to learn the alphabet, and everything is just really hard. but eventually you can learn a lot faster. So right now, as this curve goes like this, and then that knee of the curve, that's where we are right now. If you go back 500 years and look at what was humanity like 500 years ago, and you will realize it was very rough. It was a lot of violence, a lot of dysfunction going on. They were the people in charge, could pretty much do whatever they damn well pleased, and everybody else had to suck it up. It was a hard place. So if you look at every year, every century, 500 years ago, for the last 5 centuries, you'll see that we're getting better and better and coming up. And the last 5 centuries are just an eye blink in 200,000 years. So not much, just slowly, and then it goes. It goes more quickly. So we're right at the knee of that curve. The last 500 years, we've done more in the last 500 years than we did the, 195,000 years before that. And that quickening is coming. But we're going to have, in the next few decades, choices of whether we own up and start taking bigger steps instead of tiny little steps. The steps have been getting better. Last 500 years, each century takes a little bigger step in that positive direction. But now we're in line for some bigger steps. And the first time ever, humanity has an opportunity to take some big steps. And that's mostly because of the internet. It used to be that a big earthquake kills 100,000 people in someplace, and people someplace else really don't care because they don't even know where that is. They may have never heard the name of that country or have no idea anything about it, so not my problem.
Yeah.
And now that's not the case. Now you get to see poor little starving children with potbellies, wherever they occur, and destruction, death, and bodies, and people send money, people care, people see it. So we've gone from being people that we don't really care about to...
It's making it less easy to get away with evil.
Yeah, so we're becoming more of a family rather than a bunch of relatives out there that we've never heard of. So that's what the internet's done. It's brought us together. Things happen and everybody gets to see about it.
There's also an argument to be made that our internet has driven us apart. I mean, it's less healthy and forced us into echo chambers. And
every technology has its upside and its downside. You don't get the upside unless the downside comes with it.
Sure.
If you have an internet, it can be used for good things and it can be used for bad things. Mm-hmm. And it can help us in some ways and it can hurt us in other ways. That's just true.
It's just like anything, risk reward.
Exactly. And we have to deal with that. That's our job. We have to look at that new technology and find ways to mitigate the downside and ways to embrace the upside. That's our job. That's what we're supposed to be doing here. But anyway, we have the opportunity to make choices now in the next, I think, 3 decades that will either make a lot of progress or will fail, and we'll go backwards a bit. But if we go backwards a bit, it's only temporary. Evolution is slow, but it's relentless. So evolution may chug along, but it may go back, but it just keeps on chugging along. And, you may have a big meteor strike and all kinds of dust everywhere, and everything dies off, but it comes back because it's relentless. So we will make it. One day, humanity will make it to that place where life will be kinder, gentler, and more supportive, and everybody will have the maximum amount of personal freedom. But we have to make the choices that takes us there. It's not going to be given to us, but we have the opportunity to make a couple of really big steps in that direction. Now, will mankind make those steps, and will they drop that probability? That's up to us. So people who are your age and your children's age, they're going to live through all that. All these times that are, we're getting to that knife edge where it's going to fall to this side or it's going to fall to that side. This side's positive and wonderful, and this side sucks.
Right.
So we're getting to those places, and the people that are alive and young now will live through all of that decision making, probably.
Do you think it's possible that far in the past, we evolved to be super low entropy and achieve this pinnacle of consciousness, and then maybe we were wiped out or reset by some sort of a cosmic cataclysm or something like this?
No, I don't think so. I think that we were,
or maybe even escaped Earth.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the case. I think that when the larger conscious system made this virtual reality for us to play in, we got here and it was tough, but people were spread a lot. We didn't really have civilization then. We just had a bunch of tribes making their own way. Then we ended up with civilization where we were stuck in cities where we were next to each other and we had to cooperate more and share. And you had the people that made the shoes and the people that made the weapons and the people that built houses and the thatcher and so on. We got interactive and interdependent. That helped us grow then faster than when we didn't. We were all just kind of nomads wandering around in space that was mostly empty. So, yes, it's been a long, gradual process of us growing. And to grow up, you have to change who you are. It's not a matter of intellectual growth. It's not a matter of understanding intellectually. It's a matter of being. It's not like acting kind is going to help you. Being kind is what makes you grow up, right? Not acting. Right. So you have to change who you are. You have to be different. That's why it's so slow. If it was just that we all could act, all we needed would be a script, and we could all do really well. But it's not about acting. It's about being. And no, I don't think that happened. Although I do have one historical fact that kind of puts a timeline on it, and that is that this larger consciousness system, when it went from a monolithic thing to a thing with lots of individuated piece parts that we talked about, it had to learn, just like we have to learn, it had to learn to cooperate. It was just consciousness, and it had always been just one monolithic thing. So now it had all these piece parts, it made those to give it a richer set of possibilities, and I think it started out by saying, all right, all new piece parts, here's what we're going to do today. Just being kind. We're all going to do this and do that. Mm-hmm. And all the piece parts that had free will went, today, I'm going fishing because they were independent. So the system then got a little forceful, tried to push them, tried to bully them, tried to threaten them into doing what it wanted, its idea of, and it discovered that didn't work. Whenever you tried to bully or force or regiment, it always turned out to make things worse, not better. So the system itself had to learn to become love. And we were the foil by which it had to learn that. It had to learn to treat us with respect and with care and let us grow up, because you can't force anybody else to grow up. You have to let them grow up from the inside out. Right. So that's how the larger conscious system grew up. Now, we're doing that with each other. And the historical point here is that if you go to the Old Testament, you'll find, this is the Christian Old Testament, it goes back, 5,000 years BC or further back in its history of the Israelites and so on. And you will find that there was an angry and jealous God. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'll turn you into a pillar of salt. You had this kind of attitude going on. And then you get to the New Testament, and God is love. It's all about love and turning the other cheek and doing unto others as you have them doing to you. Mm-hmm. Well, what changed that angry and jealous God into the God of love? That was a larger consciousness system trying to bully the individuated units of consciousness into doing what it wanted and realizing that didn't work. And then it grew up. It had to change what it was at its being level. It's a conscious system. It's aware. It didn't just happen to be full of love and perfect. It had to learn that just like we have to learn that. So you have that history that dates back into 5,000 BC, or maybe before that, maybe 10,000 BC. I'm not quite sure how far back that goes. But in any case, that kind of puts a timeline to it, if that indeed is a case, if that difference between Old Testament and New Testament was the fact the larger conscious system had to learn to grow up itself. And now it's helping us learn to grow up by getting people like Chris Bledsoe and like crop circles and lots of people who get this message. And many of them get it just in something personal. Some personal thing happens to them and they experience the paranormal in a very dramatic way. Yeah. And then they become searchers, seekers, and they go out on the internet and say, does this happen to anybody else? And that's, if you go to a place like the Sun Games, you'll find that, if you ask the people, well, how'd you get involved in this? Most of them will say, well, when I was such and such, this happened to me, and ever since then, you get that. So that's kind of the movement, and the system is helping us grow up and creating those kinds of experience. I talked to a woman once who said that her mother died, and about 10 days after her mother's death, she had a phone call, and she picked it up, and it was her mother. It was her mother's voice, and the mother said something like, and called her some baby name that nobody else would have known. Called her that and said, I just wanted to let you know that I'm fine and you don't have to worry about me. And the lady was so freaked out that she immediately thought that somebody was playing with her. She slammed the phone down. Right. And then a few minutes after that, she wished she hadn't, because she realized that was her mother. Because of the baby name nobody else knew. It couldn't have been anybody else fooling around. So now that lady becomes a seeker, right? She starts searching the internet for other people who have talked to their dead parents, and she finds that thousands of people have talked to their dead parents. So that's the system, sometimes one at a time, but then these people collect and they talk to each other, and somebody writes a book. It's kind of the waking up period is what we're going through now. That's what you're doing. You're here, running this podcast, and you're talking about things that are off the map for most people, right? These are things that are unusual, and a lot of these unusual things are there to help people wake up. This reality is not as buttoned down as you thought. It's not just this simple physical thing. That's what most of the UFO things are about. It's just another way, like crop circles, to get people to open their minds to something more than what they've been fed all their lives. To have a sense that greater possibilities exist. Yeah. So that is a lot of that. Now, it's a virtual reality, so if the system wants to have a little flying saucer land in your backyard, it's virtual reality. It can do that. It's just a data stream. So it puts that little flying saucer in your backyard, and it puts divots for dinner, and you all sit around and talk, and they get back in their ship and they fly away, and maybe they leave an artifact, or just they leave dark spaces in your yard and whatever. So it's simple. It's a virtual reality. It's just data put in the data stream. And if there's
some people are getting even like radiation poisoning and radiation burns and stuff on these things too, which is wild.
Yeah. Those kinds of things can happen. People, they found out when they started to explore like hypnotism, where you give people suggestions, and you can do all kinds of things with that. You can have people, they could get a big rash on their arm because you give them that suggestion. Right. There's a big connection between mind and body. Yeah. And a lot of things can happen that happen basically in consciousness that end up in physical manifestations.
And you don't think it goes the other way, right?
No. It's not the other way. The only thing that goes the other way is that if you have something happen, say, to the avatar, it doesn't change the consciousness. It provides constraints for the consciousness. Let's say you get an accident, now you have brain damage, and you can't remember your name, you can't remember where you live, you know,
it's like how I am now.
you drag your left foot, you have brain damage, so you don't physically operate the same anymore. Well, your consciousness doesn't have brain damage. There is no brain. A brain is never brain damage. Somebody's head's cut open.
Right, like a video game.
Yeah, it's just like a video game. Yeah, you're
saving processing power.
Yeah. So now the consciousness has to play a character. I can't remember his name. It affects the consciousness in that way. It doesn't actually affect the consciousness, but it gives the consciousness a set of constraints it has to work within. But yes, mind can create all kinds of physical things. Matter of fact, there's several doctors. Dr. Sarno was one of them who, after Sarno, Dr. Sarno, remember his first name, he's dead now, but he has a lot of people who, or some people who are still practicing his stuff. He realized that an awful lot of ailments had an emotional and mental component to them. And he said that once he explored this and found ways to work with this, that about 80% of all the patients that walked in his door, the physical problems they had could be resolved with working with them on an emotional level.
Right. Well, it's certainly true that when people are diagnosed with a cancer and told they have a month left to live, that's going to really affect their state and make them depressed and make them lose all hope. And that is going to have a snowball effect on their outcome. And
absolutely, and all their friends.
Imagine if they had that same diagnosis, that same tumor or whatever the cancer was, and instead they said, look, this happened to you, but most people survive. Everything's great. You just need to do these things, go outside, blah, 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 blah. Encourage that person to encourage an elevated state. You know what I mean? Instead of basically painting this dark portrait for them in the future.
What's worse than that, that patient goes back and they tell their spouse, they tell their kids, they tell their brothers and sisters, and their neighbors, oh, I've got cancer and I'm going to die in a month. So now you have another 20 people all with that image of this person dying in another month, all of them sad, all of them negative, and that probability of dying just goes right up. So that's a problem. You have now a bunch of people doing it, and a lot of people are more powerful. If you get we call these things healing circles, they're not really circles, they're just a bunch of people that get together to try to heal. And if you had 10 people who are all of equal strength and ability, you will be able to do 10 times as much as one of them. It adds. It's all additive. They're all putting their effort to modify the probabilities. Some of them there's benefit equal, then 10 of them will be 10 times more effective than one of them. So yes, you get all your neighbors and your friends and your family all miserable and upset because you're going to die. Then that probability that you're going to die just gets jacked right up. Now, I'm not going to tell people that they should not go to doctors. That's not a good idea. But you should first work on something. Let's say you feel a little lump here in your neck, and that bothers you. Instead of running right to a doctor immediately, these things generally, they're time sensitive, but not that time sensitive. Take 2 weeks to work on it. Take 2 weeks to use your mind and say, that's benign. It's just fatty tissue collected in there. There's nothing too serious about that. Do that in a meditation state, or do that just when you're quiet and by yourself. Yeah. Do that for 2 weeks, because anything you're going to do, you'll be able to do it within 2 weeks. If you take a month, you're not going to be much better at it. So do that for 2 weeks, and then go see the doc. Instead of running in to see the doc while you're scared. That might be a cancer. You've just jacked up the probability that it is a cancer. So just relax, let it go, accept it will be whatever it is, and whatever it is, you'll deal with it. Don't feed it negative energy, and try to feed it positive energy. It's just a fatty tissue, or it's just benign in some way. Then you go into the doc. Don't not go to the doc. Go to the doc, but first for a little bit of time. That then would be a better way to deal with those things, because most medical things are not on that fast of a timetable. I mean, some things are obviously you're bleeding out. You're not going to sit down and think about it. You're going to try to go someplace where they can fix it. But if it's something like cancer or something else, then you got 2 weeks that you can. Most people put it off that long anyway, right? Before they decide that they need to go in. Instead of using that 2 weeks to worry about it, use that 2 weeks to fix it. And get your friends to fix it. Put positive energy and get their friends to be positive. But you got negative friends and say, oh no, I think he's going to come through that. Don't tell them about it.
Going back to this UFO stuff, do you think it's possible that there could be another civilization living somewhere on the Earth that is like far more advanced than us? Like, for example, right now, if you compare us living in the Western world, people living in Silicon Valley, driving these autonomous vehicles, using phones to communicate, implanting brain chips in people to fix things like, paralysis or whatever. At the same exact time, there's people running around naked in the Amazon. Mm-hmm. So do you think that you can extrapolate that and could compare us and say we're the naked people in the Amazon? Are there people that are that much more advanced than us that we don't know about?
I suspect not physically advanced. You're talking about physical advancements.
Technological
advancements.
Right.
Now, if you're talking about advancements in quality of consciousness, yes. There are probably people, and maybe groups of people who are have a much higher quality of consciousness than we do in our world. And these are probably going to be Argarian people who spend their days sitting out in their field watching their sheep eat grass to make sure the wolves don't take the sheep, because they live a simple, uncomplicated, direct life, connected with nature, not a lot of stress. They've learned to cooperate with the environment that they have. They have their good days and bad days, but basically, they probably are people who are more adjusted to their life and to what's going on, and they probably have a lot less stress than people running around, trying to beat Wall Street.
But what do you make of these corroborated experiences and sightings of these like flying saucers, or the stuff that the Harvard psychiatrist John Mack talked about with these abduction experiences, people being sucked up into spaceships and having their eggs and sperm extracted, and talking about they're from the future and they look like children with like little bodies, big heads, and eyes. And like it's obviously like something that he's interviewed hundreds of people and they all explain the same exact thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, these are things that happen within consciousness. Okay? There is no physical reality. We only have the information that we're fed in the data stream. That is our reality. I shouldn't say that. Our interpretation of that is our reality. Now, there are, if you want to, again, put a spaceship someplace or get sucked up into a spaceship and have somebody operating on you, that's just data in the data stream. Now, you feed that data stream yourself. Remember, so there's 3 ways you get data. You get data from the large scale system, you get data from other IUSCs, and you get data from yourself. You create it. And most of your experience is a hodgepodge of all 3 of those. So,
taking us
you to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I was sitting there eating a spare rib down there on my lunch break. I got the door light on. And Big Al comes out of the corral, and he passes me from up before he can see me out there. And he's like, what are you eating over there, man? I see you all over the plate, and eating something. I told him I'm eating the ribs. But yeah, he was wondering about, I'm going to say 40, he's probably 30 or 40 minutes ahead of me. Hold on, I got to slow down here.
annoy the shit out of me all fucking day. Man, what the fuck going on here?
In half a mile, turn right. Turn
experience of being beamed up and then have something done to you,
Yeah.
that's a standard fear test kind of experience. The system does a lot of fear testing to see what you're ready for next. You know, what can it put into your data stream that will help you grow up? What level are you? Where are you? And what kind of things are going to help you grow up rather than frighten you and make you go backwards? So they do some fear testing, and that's one of the fear tests. You know, it's kind of a standard test, so a lot of people get that. And if they get a very fearful approach to it, oh no, who are these people? What are they doing? I feel totally helpless. I'm out of control. Oh, they're going to do this and that to me. If you get that, then your own fear will start to add to that story. And it'll get worse, and it'll get horrible, and they'll do worse things to you. You start to add to the story. And that is one fear test, and a lot of people get fear tests. There's a lot of other fear tests that people get. People who start going out of body, often they'll run into monsters.
Yeah.
You know, they get out of body for the first time and they meet some kind of monster with big bloody teeth or something, and they run and jump back in their body and it's gone. And now they're upset with themselves because they've been wanting to get out of body for years, and they finally do, and they run from it. Those kinds of tests, we get those while we're dreaming. We get those can just happen to us. We get a data stream. We may be sitting on the back porch at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, perfectly sober, and get that in our data stream. And there may be 5 people with us that all get the same thing in their data stream. So everybody sees the flying saucer. It just depends. The system will do that to challenge us, to see at what level we are. And if we feed it with our own fear, then it turns out to be a lot worse than it would be if we didn't. So that's the problem. It's not going to be that the system gives us something horrible. It doesn't. It gives us something that is more benign than that. So I can tell you, I've had similar experiences to that too. I've had my sessions with the flying saucers and the beamed up and interacting with beings.
You had experiences like that of being abducted?
Yes, I've had experiences like that.
In your sleep, or like fully conscious?
Well, in my awareness, I was fully conscious, but in actuality, I was just getting a different data stream, and I dealt with that. I dealt with it without a lot of fear, and it turned out okay. But it was the same sort of thing that I hear when others talk about it. And I kind of thought, well, that's just not a good thing, but a bad thing. It's something I'll watch out for. I let it go, and it didn't happen anymore. It was that kind of a thing.
Once?
Yeah, probably a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. But what happens when they give you these tests, they'll give it to you, and then they'll modify it and give you it again. If you do well, they'll give you another one, see if you do well. And if you pass 2 or 3 of them, then it wasn't just lucky guess, it was you've already passed that point, so then they don't get them anymore. And as I went back to it and inspected it, those experiences, I think it was just the larger conscious system trying to give an assessment of who I was and how I would interact and how much fear I had.
How old were you when this happened? How old were you when this alien abduction happened?
Psychology.
I wouldn't really call it an alien abduction. I just was.
On Discord. Are you horny enough? Message me to find out.
Yo, fuck it. Man, fuck yeah.
Picture the story that fits the experience, but I had an experience, and it also was put in the context of some other beings in kind of a spaceship. I mean, that was the story that was given to me.
I'm horny enough. You don't even know. I'm so. I'm strategically horny.
psychology. Always straight fast down to my ankles. That's how horny I am.
I'm not even wearing pants. Get like me, brother. I'm not even fucking wearing pants. All I got on is socks.
Okay, you're him.
I got on a banana hammock and socks, brother. That's how I roll.
Psychology. Chief the monster, please.
Oh yeah, no, you know, it's always sheathed, brother. Must you know.
In 1,000 feet, make a U-turn.
Shut the fuck up.
Make a U-turn.
Bro, I've been working
In 800 feet, make a U-turn.
I've been working for a week and I had 2 days off. God damn, I know you miss me, man. That
Make
ain't
a
even.
U-turn.
I take it as a compliment. Like, a nigga was off literally 2 days. Been working for a month and a half.
In half a mile.
And I'm back on it, and we going into the snow, and I don't have on any pants.
Strategic psychology. Windows down, heat blasting at your ankles. That's the Kelly way.
Honestly, I have the heat on my feet.
Back in your truck yet?
Fuck no. And Tony said I blew the head gasket on this truck. But like only a little bit. I don't fucking understand. I'm like, bro, why the fuck? How do I keep blowing up trucks? And if that's the case, then how long do you plan on me keep like staying here, nigga? Like, I can't just keep blowing up trucks like that. But some part of me, like, I believe him, but I believe being exaggerated. I wish this nigga would shut the fuck up so much. Yeah, so that's what the fuck I end up doing. So apparently or allegedly.
Psychology. Truck's very loud now.
I noticed that. I think I got an exhaust leak. And then this old motherfucking dinosaur, I went down there with his daughter. I was over there. All this fucking bullshit. Shut the fuck up, nigga. Oh, yeah. That's the turbo. You hear that shit. I mean...
Psychology. Driver, I got ants in my pants. What do I do, driver?
Why don't you dip your extremities in the soothing waters of Lake Minnetonka? I don't fucking know. Anyways, I mean, being a stripper, you would think I would know, but I never had like crabs or nothing like that. Sounds like you got crabs, and I'm not talking about the delicious garlicky ones. I'm talking about the small itchy ones. You know, man, that ain't good, brother. You might want to get that little comb they sell. It's like a 2-pack where it comes with a shampoo.
_ psychology. I just think it'd be fun to play on the radio.
I'm about 2 seconds away from telling them, hey man, why don't you shut the fuck up? Nigga, you've been talking to nobody for like an hour. Are you like that lonely? Call somebody on the phone or go to another channel if you're gonna have a whole conversation about nothing. But you know, truck drivers classically have been retarded. Well, I won't say all of them, but what I will say is, back in the days, it gravitated to less retards. Now you can see, like, the more fat and stupid a job has, like, their workers, is the more that...
_ psychology. I had tacos from Jack in the Box. Very unsatisfied.
Man, I had them shit years and years ago, and it just tasted like some soy protein crap with just like corn and soy. It just tastes like crap. Those mini tacos, some people love them, but I don't. Them shits are not good. They just taste like a bean burrito, but not even a good one. It's just like artificial shit. I've been eating just straight meat, man, for a while, or like animal products, so my taste kind of changes when I do that. All that artificial shit, bro, I can't do it.
Strategic _ psychology. Pork rinds and salsa. Strategic _ psychology. Cheese dip.
Nah, I don't. Even that fucking. Hold on. Even that cheese dip, I don't really like it. It's just kind of fucking artificial and like shitty. So what I'll do is I'll eat pork rinds with like cottage cheese. I can't say that it's better, but or even sour cream would be a better choice.
Strategic _ psychology. Damn, that's hardcore.
I've grown to like cottage cheese, and I never used to like it before back in the day.
What made you
ended up there. I'm trying to think about how old I was. I was probably late 20s, early 30s for me.
Wow.
That happened. But see, I had been working already for some years with Bob and Grow, so I had a little more savvy with mind and consciousness and that kind of stuff than the average person was. So I looked at it not from a personal, this is scary viewpoint, but from this is an interesting trip. This is an instant reality.
What were you doing leading up to when that happened? Do you remember?
I think.
Smoking crack.
What was I doing? What, the moments before?
Yes.
I was probably just lying in a bed, not sleeping, being awake with my mind kind of drifting. I hadn't gone to sleep yet, but I wasn't, I was in a twilight state. I guess what they call that. I was kind of in a twilight state. And then suddenly these things started happening from this twilight state. So I hadn't gone to sleep yet, but it wasn't a dream. It was something else. It was just an experience that I got. Experience is information. Experience. So that happened. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. I experienced it. I let it go, but I had a lot of experience by that time. I'd been going out to Monroe for some years.
Yeah.
And strange experiences were almost every day for me. I could put it into perspective. If you just got that out of nowhere, it would be probably scarier and more of a problem. But
sure.
I had lots of experiences that were unexplainable. So another unexplainable experience was not that big a deal.
How would you describe the beings that you saw?
They were not like us. Very different. More human. The beings that I saw, beings that didn't know.
Were they hominid looking, two upright, two legs?
Mostly hominid looking, yes. But very different. And again, that's the picture I paint. I get the data, and I have to put the face on it. I have to make the story to describe it. So now if I read a lot of books about grays and people with big eyes and that sort of thing, that's probably what that'd be the story I'd put on it. Right. But I didn't have that stuff then. It wasn't that popular, so I made up my own pictures, and they were just very strange. They weren't humans.
Did they communicate? Was there any communication?
Yes, there was some communication. I talked with them, they talked with me. But the feeling that I got during that communication was sort of like the feeling you get when the guy at the used car store tells you only a little old lady owned that car and she only drove it on Sundays. You get
really?
You get that feeling that they were telling you things, but that you really couldn't believe it or take it too seriously.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of off, and you had this idea that there was something else going on, besides what you were experiencing. There was another component to it. So you had that sense of the experience. So you weren't quite sure. Yes, they were saying things, but you weren't quite sure that there was another, what do you call it, another agenda. There was some other agenda going on.
You smell bullshit.
Yeah, you smell something's. It's not all what you see. What you see is just what you see. There's other stuff going on that you don't know about. So you definitely got that as a strong opinion. But that was part of the stuff that was going to check your fear level.
That's interesting because, speaking about John Mack, there was a famous case that he studied in Zimbabwe, in rural Zimbabwe, this school, aerial school, where all of these children, I think there was like 14 or 15 children, all saw beings standing outside of the playground, like beyond the playground, staring at them and communicating to them with feelings. They said there was no auditory, there was no words being transmitted, but they were looking into their eyes and they were being just flooded with emotional feelings. And the feelings they described were the way they interpreted those feelings was that like technology is bad, and the way we are developing and evolving our technology is going to destroy us, and we need to stop.
Yeah, that may be something that they'd already heard, or just just a message. I had the sense, kind of going back to that experience, I had a sense that there was another agenda going on, but I didn't feel particularly threatened. But that was me. I already had gotten rid of most of my fear earlier on, out of the lab with Bob. And so I didn't feel really threatened, but they were doing things to me. Yes. But of course, my kind of attitude is, that's interesting. But I could see that if I didn't have that ability or that experience, that could be frightening. And once it gets frightening, then you start making up your own story, and you start adding things to it, and you become a generator of the information that you're interpreting. So it kind of depends on the fear level of the individual. And I got kind of a message after that. It happened a few times, and I then made contact. Before I would go to sleep, I was making contact with these people, and I got the idea, to just turn that off and ignore it. Stop with that. It's they don't need that. So I did. I cut that off. Like I say on the web, you reach up and click the X. You can close the portal if you want to. So you just close the portal, and you don't hear that anymore. You don't hear it. So that's just one of the things you can learn to do.
So this larger consciousness that you speak of, that we all come from, is this God?
Well, that's an interesting thing. I never looked at it that way. It just turned out I was just following the logic of how consciousness evolved, and it ended up with this larger consciousness system. And about, 10, 15 years ago, I was giving a talk in a basement of a church, because that's a very cheap venue. And it was in Atlanta, Georgia. And I had two PhD theologians there. It was the minister and the assistant minister. And the idea just hit me. So I stopped what I was saying. I was telling people sort of things I told you. I was telling people a larger consciousness and so on. And I asked them, I said, well, you two are theologians, right? And they said, yes. And I said, tell me, what are the characteristics of God? Now, I don't want, dogma. I just want the fundamental characteristics. What are the attributes of God in general? And they did. They went up and huddled and came back about 10 minutes later, and it was their list, and they had about 6, 7 things on there that was the attributes of God. And you want to know the attribute of the larger consciousness system. And I didn't expect that. I thought maybe 1 or 2 or 3 might be, but all of them were. And after that, I started thinking about it. This model has also derived God. What is God? Where does it come from? It's the larger consciousness system. It's the source of everything. Oh yes, we are created in its image. We're little pieces that are the same piece of consciousness with memory and processing and whatever. We're virtual machines inside the larger machine, and it all kind of fell together. That's what most people talk about when they talk about God, functionally, the attributes. But now, the larger conscious system isn't perfect. It's not supernatural, it's natural. It doesn't know everything all the time, but it can know everything, but it has to focus its intention. It has to focus here or focus there. And if it focuses everywhere at once, then it doesn't get the fidelity that it does if it focuses various places. So it's a consciousness system. And then that says that it has all those same functions that we ascribe to God. So not only does this theory of everything do physics and do psychology and do metaphysics and do philosophy, but it also does theology. And that answers some of the big questions in theology. Where's God come from? How did that start? And on. Well, it all goes back to that original cell of consciousness. It could just be a 1 or a 0, and it evolved from that state. So yes, and I've had any number of people that this one lady, she was a nurse, and I can't remember where, in Colorado, I think, and she wrote to me, and she said, I am a very religious person. I consider myself to be very religious. I take religion very seriously, and I always have. And she went on to say, wherever I go now, I always carry 2 books with me, the Bible and my big toe. She says, I love your work because everything that was mysterious that I didn't understand, I understand it now, and it all makes perfect sense to me. So I've had a number of people, and what I expected when I wrote the books is that the people who were very religious would not like my big toe very much. That they would, I'd find them on the negative side of that, but I haven't. Mostly, I've found people who are religious to think that it's a really good idea, because suddenly all the things that they were taught have a scientific foundation under them rather than a mystical foundation under them. It's the same with the paranormal stuff. Like everything paranormal is easily, turned into logic and science. That's just the way consciousness works. Consciousness is method.
So if the larger consciousness is God, that means we are all also God.
We're also pieces of that system. And we have all of its attributes, but in a small package. Okay? Well, think of the computer. Okay, you have a mainframe. And then you have 10,000 users, and each one of those users has a little bit of memory, a little bit of, a little bit of processing, and so on.
We're all pieces of it.
We're all pieces. Right. So we have the same general attributes of God. We are pieces of that larger conscious system, but we're in a smaller package. We don't have the capacity that it has, because it has the capacity to fit in all of us and everything else. But we have all the same things. We can evolve the quality of our consciousness to that same level of being love. So we can duplicate that. We're not limited other than in resources. We have limited resources. It doesn't seem to. It has unlimited resources too, but it's much bigger.
Well, the God of Christianity, capital G, they believe that Christians believe God is all-knowing, all-omnipotent, which means God knows everything that's ever happened and that will ever happen, which means God knows the future, which means our stories are already written.
Yeah, no, see, I wouldn't agree with that. I would say that the larger conscious system knows most everything that has happened because it's all in that database that it collects on all the decisions and choices and so on. So it's got all that data collected, and it has omniscience in the sense that it can look at everything that's going on and why it's going on. So because we're pieces of it, the mainframe can look at all the users and what the users are doing and how they're doing it. The mainframe, it's just a piece of the mainframe. So the mainframe isn't blocked out of that. They're just using a piece of that mainframe. So it's the same thing. So yes, the mainframe can know what's going on, but the future is not a done deal, because if the future is a done deal, then there are no choices. If there are no choices, there is no free will. If there is no free will, there's no consciousness. Consciousness, I define as awareness with a choice. That's it, awareness with a choice. Free will is necessary for consciousness. If there are no choices, then there's nothing. There's no growth, there's no evolution, there's no change. If it's all fixed, then there's nothing happening. It's the zero set, so there's no purpose to it. It's just done, finished. It's a so what? There's nothing significant ever. And that doesn't build a system. You can't build a system out of that. So the idea that this is a deterministic. Now the physicists don't like to say this is deterministic, because they like to say that if I knew the state vector of every particle in the universe, I could compute everything that would happen from there on. But that's nonsense. It doesn't work like that. Physicists who want to believe that matter is at the bottom, even though their experiments tell them that they're not, they paint themselves in a corner. There's two logical positions that are totally opposite, and you can't mix them. One is that this is deterministic and materialistic. If it's materialistic, it has to be deterministic. Those two are matched, set to go together. On the opposite corner, philosophically, you have consciousness, time, and free will. Those three have to exist. You take any one of them away, the other two can't make it. Consciousness needs choice. Conscious of what? What? You have to have input. You have to have choice. This input or that input. You have to have choice. How do you interpret the data? So if you don't have...
Like academic people?
I know some people in private companies who've done that, yeah.
Really? So people that you worked with and studied with and
to some degree, yeah. Yeah, not personally in one, yeah. Certainly, I know personally well in one case, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, I wonder what would get somebody interested in trying to figure out anti-gravity, especially like a serious physicist, you know, not just someone who's just like a hobbyist UFO freak, somebody who's like really into physics. Like,
it's a hard topic because there's always a lot of claims. I'll get an email every 2 weeks. I mean, every week I'm getting emails about UFOs or something, but I'll get an email maybe every 2 weeks about somebody's anti-gravity work, and they've got this great solution for anti-gravity, but and it's always this mishmash of buzzwords, right? Almost the same buzzwords, so you can't really. It's hard to take seriously, especially when if you're going to figure that out, especially if somebody's doing something like electrogravitics, you would have to have the beginnings, at least, of a theory of the unification of electromagnetism and gravity. So you should have some of that worked out to some degree. Mm-hmm. And that when I don't see that, that's pretty much a clue. Okay, this person really probably doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, like standard commercial airplanes. We're using the same commercial airplanes that we've been using since the 50s. It's amazing that we haven't been able to expound upon that and develop. It's like this technology is just stagnated. I mean, physics, there's a huge thing within physics, string theory and all these things. No one can figure out physics. We're stuck. We have this large hadron collider and we haven't been able to figure anything out. And technology in general, it doesn't seem to be evolving in the way other technologies are evolving, like AI, for example. Like, it's making giant leaps every single week and month, and then on the physical side of it, it's like nothing.
Yeah, that's been a concern. I've seen certainly YouTube videos about other physicists talking about this, and I suspect a lot of it has to do with the fact that we went through. I mean, if you look at the last century, you had two giant breakthroughs at about the same time. You had relativity in 1905, with general relativity following, 7 years later or something, 5 years later. And so you've got that whole conceptual change. And at the same time, probably around 1925, you've got quantum mechanics coming in. So you've got these two huge paradigm shifts in physics that appeared. And quantum mechanics was such a big deal that it allowed you to calculate things and allowed you to figure out things that nobody's been able to figure out before. And you could figure out why this coffee cup is orange. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody was able to tell you why these molecules are reflecting orange light, but you can do that with quantum mechanics, right? So physics went through this mindset change where to make a breakthrough, to make an advancement, all you had to do was to apply the mathematics of quantum mechanics to a problem. You didn't have to understand quantum mechanics. You just had to apply it to a problem and do the calculations to figure out what the results were. So it became this, and Richard Feynman called this the shut up and calculate paradigm, right? Okay. So stop worrying about what quantum mechanics is, just shut up and calculate, do the calculations and, figure something out. And that's basically what happened with physics. And so a lot of research in physics stopped, especially theoretical work, stopped trying to find a new paradigm, look for inconsistencies and find a new paradigm to come up with a new breakthrough, like on the order of quantum mechanics. And basically assumed that won't happen and just basically resorted to doing calculations. Let's throw all the math we can at the problem and see what comes out. And that's what string theory is. Let's just throw math at the problem. Let's not understand quantum mechanics better. Let's just, instead of other particles, let's make them strings and then do math. So I think that's been the mistake, is that we stopped valuing the conceptual aspects of physics. Why are the laws of physics the way that they are? And so some of the theoretical work that I've done is trying to go back to these conceptual ideas. Why are the laws of quantum mechanics?
And why do you think that's happened? Why do you think that? How did we get there? How did we get here?
I think it was just the shut up and calculate philosophy. You could do a lot by calculating. I mean, you could figure out superconductivity by just applying quantum mechanics and come up with superconductivity, which is a breakthrough, so it's a big deal. You can get a Nobel Prize by applying quantum mechanics without trying to understand it or trying to go further.
Interesting.
So I think that we stopped appreciating that real breakthroughs come from conceptual changes rather than just applying math.
Yeah.
You can't just throw math at a problem and expect to make a conceptual change.
And the people that you know that were working on this, trying to understand anti-gravity, what do you know, like, what sort of sparked the flame for them to research this stuff, and if so, how far they were able to get before they got told to shut it down?
Yeah, I don't know I don't know the details actually. Yeah.
It's just so interesting, this whole thing. I know a gentleman who Jeremy Riss, who has he's a kind of a self-taught, I think he's like a bachelor's in physics, but he's a lab, or he has had a few labs in Massachusetts that he's been working at. And he has a whole team of people that have been working on this stuff forever. And, he's constantly talking to people in the field and trying to understand stuff. And then recently he had, I think the FBI came and, shut down his whole site, his whole lab. Wow. Trying to study this stuff, because they're constantly, making videos of their experiments they're doing and posting them on YouTube and doing live streams and stuff like that.
He's doing anti-grav work?
Yeah, he's trying to. Yeah, he's trying. He understands this stuff better than, I don't know if he understands it better than anyone, but he's explained it to me better than anyone I've ever talked to. And he's a historian on all of the people who have studied it in the past, and very, very interesting guy to talk to.
Well, that is interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to military stuff, right, and you seem to believe that this stuff could not possibly be, just because of the fact that it's been going on for so long, and the same things are happening now, it doesn't make sense. But we would have to have something close to it, right? Like, if we have, with the amount of money that we're putting into military stuff and Defense Department stuff, and there's essentially trillions of dollars missing from the DoD's receipts. We should have something close to this that you would want to keep secret from the rest of the world. So it seems like there's probably a lot of different scenarios here that are happening at the same time.
It's probably, I would imagine it's possible. It's possible we have something close like this. If we do hear rumors of crash retrievals, and I've heard these from, we've heard some of these publicly, right? But I've heard private ones as well, and yeah, it's possible we did figure things out from crash retrievals if that was what's going on. Yeah, that's possible. Mm-hmm. Or even just basic research on their own. I mean, yeah, it is possible that things were figured out, but. It's hard to speculate about that.
If you were, a lot of this stuff's speculation, but if you were to try to come up with a theory on how these things maneuver and how they operate, just guess, wild speculation, what would you what would you go to?
And that's a tough one. I think about that a lot. And first, an acceleration of 10,000 Gs, nothing's going to survive that inside. So it can't be regular Newtonian motion like we imagine it. They're not moving the way we think they're moving. It's not possible with those accelerations. So something else is happening. So are they... So the first go-to is using general relativity, so it's creating something like a gravitational field and things falling in a gravitational field.
Sure.
So that's like a warp drive concept. So
this is like the thing Bob Lazar explains, where the reactor inside kind of like it's making this pocket of space around it.
Right.
Where basically if it's moving this way, it's doing the same. It's like bending the space around.
You're moving the space around it, and you're just moving the space around
essentially
the object.
Essentially like doing that, but that way.
But that way.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one solution. That's the most obvious one. Another idea would be that it's using something like, in quantum tunneling, when you go from point A to point B without traveling in between, maybe this thing is using some kind of macroscopic quantum tunneling where it's just pop, 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 basically teleporting in some way. That's another possibility. Could there be other things happening? Possibly, yeah. It's hard to speculate without hard data.
What other cases have you looked at that you're really interested in?
Other UFO cases, or
like other than like we talked about the Japan one, but like other
well, there's a good number of them, and they're interesting for other reasons. So we just published a paper on the scientific study of UAPs. It's in the Progress of Aerospace Science.
Oh yes, this is the new paper that...
It's a new paper that just came out. It's got 34 authors, lots of good people on it. And
how long are you working on this?
For about last year.
Okay.
And it's 58 pages in the journal and 500 references. So it basically is a summary of the scientific study of UAP today, right? And one thing we tried to do in this paper is we tried to dispel a lot of the myths that are kind of floating around, especially in academia, on UAP. So it's an American problem. It's an American phenomenon. It doesn't happen anywhere else. Well, that's not true. And then you get the
this is a myth that's floating around in academia.
No, a lot of people say all sorts of ridiculous things about UAP because they really don't know. They haven't really looked at it. Why are there no UFOs seen in Africa? Well, there are UFOs seen in Africa. In fact, there's books written about UFOs in Africa, right?
Wow, yeah.
And
Zimbabwe, right?
And then there's the landing in Zimbabwe at the Ariel School. That's well known, right? And then you've got why is there no physical evidence? There's plenty of physical evidence. These things land and break tree branches and leave marks in the ground and leave radiation traces and leave chemical traces. And we have chemical traces, and some of these are being studied. And in fact, in the same issue that our paper on the new science of UAPs is being published, we had Jacques Vallée is publishing a paper on the re-examination of tree bark that was scorched by a very luminous UFO that landed, putting out hundreds of megawatts of light. Basically burnt the trees in forest clearing. And they restudied the tree. They actually went and resampled the tree bark recently. This happened in 1965, I think.
There's still tree bark.
The trees are still growing, the bark's still there.
The bark is still there.
The bark's still there, yeah. It's just under layers, right? So you can still get that. And so they looked at that and were using that to estimate the amount of light that these things put out. So these things put out hundreds of megawatts of light in some cases. And that observation was from a physicist. A physicist was driving down the road in northern, it was near Haynesville, Louisiana, which was actually Arkansas. They were actually north enough to be in Arkansas. The landing happened. And the physicist saw this bright light coming from the forest and was driving with his family on the highway and saw this. And as he was getting closer, realized that the light was brighter than the light from his headlights. And he did a quick calculation in his head, knowing how bright his headlights were, to figure out that this thing is crazy bright and I don't want to be anywhere near it, right? So he literally stopped on the highway, did a U-turn, and got out of there,
Right.
reported it, right? So reported it, and then investigators came out and found the landing site, and found the damage done.
Where was this again?
North of Painesville, Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Yeah, just across the border in Arkansas. And so Jacques Vallée has written a paper on this where they estimate the luminance of these things. So the luminance, the amount of light coming from some of these UFOs is on the order of the amount of power of a small nuclear reactor. Why are they making so much light? Using a whole nuclear reactor's power to create enough this light to burn tree bark. It's not clear why they're so luminous in some cases. Very odd. Is this part of their propulsion technology? It could be. I don't know, but then it's basically a waste product.
Do we know anything about any of this stuff?
Very little.
This is such a frustrating topic for me sometimes.
It's really frustrating. I think very, very little is known. And I think our government knows very little. And I think that's one reason why disclosure doesn't happen faster, is because I don't think they know what to disclose.
Really?
Yeah, I really honestly don't. Yeah, I don't think, because it's going to raise many more questions that they just don't have answers to. So, one government official who's worked on these things, and I won't name him, but we had a chance to talk to him, the scientist did, and asked him, I said, how many of these craft are operating in the Earth environment at any given time? Just order of magnitude, 10,
Sure.
100, 1,000, 10,000. He goes, we have no idea. He goes, I don't know. In fact, wrote down the question. Can I write down this question so I can ask it? He didn't know the answer. They don't even know how many craft we're dealing with. And that's the level of ignorance we're at. And why is simple, is we've been treating it as nonsense for 80 years. And it's not nonsense. And when they don't treat it as nonsense,
The public has been treating it.
the public
Do you
treats
think the
it as
government has been
nonsense.
treating it that way for you?
I think a lot of them. I mean, there's different government agencies and there's different groups in the government.
Sure.
So
That's a 2 million
one of
people.
them might be treating it seriously, but they're not taken seriously by the others,
Yeah.
and that leads to budget problems, and which is why ATIP gets cut, and you're just going to perpetuate this problem.
Yeah. Have you ever
Something that we really ought to just put money into and solve the problem.
Have you ever listened to or talked to a lady by the name of Catherine Fitz?
No, I'm not familiar with her.
She's very interesting. We had her on the podcast recently. She worked for the Department of HUD she got hired under the Clinton administration, and she continued under the Bush administration. And she was basically there to clean up all the fraud that was going on and with the mortgages and all this
I
stuff.
have heard about her, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was doing the math with all the money that was going different. She's like a math wizard, so she figures out where all the money goes in government, within all the agencies all around the world, the economy, the banks, the dollar, everything. And she basically speculates, and we were talking about on the podcast, we're talking about Doge and how Doge is going in to clean up all these agencies like USAID, and they're looking into the IRS and Social Security and all this stuff. She goes, there's $21 trillion missing from the Department of Defense. She goes, if I was hired by the president to go find all the waste, fraud, and abuse, I would go straight to the $21 billion
Right.
that went dark.
Yeah.
And she noticed.
And what's the deficit? I mean, that's like 2/3 of the deficit, right?
Right. And she noticed that as soon as that $21 trillion went missing, offshore accounts started ballooning.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Why would that happen? Huh.
Because money is being moved somewhere to offshore accounts is what she's basically alluding to there.
Right.
So, and I think part of her hypothesis is the government, the top layer of the government that needs to get shit done and doesn't want to have to worry about laws, the Constitution, the bureaucracy, Congress, the Senate, all of that. If they want to get shit done, they need to have their own pool of money that they can operate outside the law and do whatever they want to do, fund whatever they want to fund, build whatever they want to build, their own secret military, whatever it is. without having to worry about laws and without having the public know about it. And she speculates that that's probably what happened. And it gets into a whole another realm of theories about breakaway civilizations and all this stuff. But that's
a whole part of the swap that nobody's dropped around in yet.
right. But like the $21 trillion, I mean, you would imagine if you wanted to rule the world, run the world, and you have unlimited money, you could do some shit that no one would know, including these people that we're looking at in Congress and these whistleblowers or anyone who's in the traditional government that we like to think of as the government. They would have no clue what's going on.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I can see that.
So yeah, no, it's hard to be optimistic about this thing, and it's sometimes, I don't know if you feel the same way, but sometimes I feel like I'm just wasting my time and mental energy thinking about it, because it's like no one's ever going to say anything. Like, you can have fun speculating about it all day long, but we're never going to have any objective evidence we're never going to know the real facts about what this stuff is on like a verifiable level, right? Like, there's never going to be anything that's verified that you can be like, oh yeah, you're talking about facts, right? It's all going to be subjective.
Right. Yeah. And that's basically why I wanted to get scientists and academia involved, because when scientists get involved and academics get involved, we'll share information, we talk to each other, we'll make this public, and that's what we do.
Well, then
and if you can look at the author list on the paper, I mean, we got scientists from 7 countries.
Dolan, Jacques Vallée,
Beatrix
Ryan
Villarreal is there. Ryan Graves is involved. We've got the French people, Luc Denis, and then Eamon Aspro from Ireland. We've got people from all over the country. Massimo Terrabari, Barbara Russo, all over Europe as well. And so. We talk to each other, and we're working together, and we are all trying to figure this out, and that's what. And I think scientists could figure this out. The problem is funding, right? Right now, all these different groups, we've got several different international groups trying to collect data on UAPs, and we're all struggling for funding. And the only places that you're either going to get it from a very rich donor, like Avila did to form the Galileo project, or you get it from being funded by a documentary filmmaker like we did, from Carolyn Corey, who made A Tear in the Sky, right? So we get money. Those are ways we can get money, but if the government or NASA had grant money available, we would all be applying, and we would be getting it, and we would be working. And we'd be getting answers, and maybe that's one reason why we're not getting money, right? I think.
Right. And your friends that were studying anti-gravity might be just allowed to study anti-gravity.
Could be too, yeah.
No, the Tear in the Sky. That documentary was about?
That was our UAPX group, which was founded by Kevin Day and Gary Voorhees. And along with Jason Turner, they were all involved with the Nimitz encounter. Kevin Day was the radar operator. Senior Chief Kevin Day was really? Radar operator. Okay. Yeah. So they all wanted answers as to what these Tic Tacs were. So they formed UAPX, and they got me involved as a physicist, and then my colleague Matthew Shadagas, who I work with at University at Albany, and we formed a team and went out to Laguna Beach in California and Avalon on Catalina Island, and set up 2 stations to basically monitor the Catalina Channel for 5 days. Watch for UAPs.
Which fun.
It was interesting, and there's spoilers here, so if you haven't seen the movie, you might pause.
Fast forward.
The movie is mainly a documentary of our mission, so it conveys all the real excitement that we had in doing working on this project for the first time, actually going out there with real equipment, trying to really look for these things. And on your first mission, what do you learn on your first mission? Typically, you learn what not to do, right? And which is exactly what happened. We learned exactly what not to do, which is why we've gotten better at this. And there's early on, there's a bright light that's seen from the guys on Catalina, moving across the sky. Doesn't appear to be an airplane. Very bright. And they contact us in Laguna, and we try to check it out. And we're checking on our apps to see if it's a known satellite, and that's not coming up to be a known satellite, so we didn't know what this was. But it turned out it was the International Space Station. Why didn't it show up on our apps? Because the stupid app we were using was off by 1 hour because of daylight savings time.
Oh, no.
And so, but who figured this out? One of the physicists did. Matthew Shinagas, my colleague, figured this out. He goes, I think it was the space station. And it just disappeared at one point. And he said it disappeared because it went behind the Terminator, went into the shadow of the Earth.
Right.
It just didn't reflect light anymore. So he did the calculations. He found the real orbit and was like, yeah, it was the right time and the right direction. And then he actually did the calculations that is in, so we've got a third paper in this same special issue in Progress in Aerospace Sciences. This is the third paper is on the UAPX mission to Catalina. So that paper describes, the results of what happened from our study that is featured in A Terror in the Sky. And that's first authored by Matthew Shadavis. And Matthew did the calculations where he took the iPhone images of the object and measured how many pixels, and then did the calculations. Well, if this is so many 100 miles away in orbit, it should be this big, and he comes out to like 111 feet across, which is, he was off by a foot on the size of the space station.
No way.
Yeah.
By measuring the pixels.
By measuring the pixel
distance.
size. Yeah, because he's a physicist. He knows what he's doing.
That's amazing, man.
And I love it when it all comes together like that. And I'm talking like, what's his name from the A-Team? I love it when a plan comes together, but that's exactly what happens. And it's and to have a good physicist on the job is a good thing. It's, I'm reminded of Jon Stewart's quote, it's amazing what scientists can do when no one makes them stop.
Yeah, right.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like, going back to how we were talking about, like, the evolution of technology and how, like, physics has been stagnated. Like, look at the Civil War, 1860s. We were shooting muskets, and then within the time frame of a human lifespan, we went from that to dropping fusion devices out of airplanes.
Right.
I mean, that's just astonishing level of technological innovation in such a short period of time.
Right.
It just blows my mind to think.
And it's those fusion devices that UFOs hang around.
Yeah.
And shut down and we're worried about.
Right.
That's interesting. And that's another interesting thing that came out in this paper. I found that next week, starting later this week, is the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies meeting. So after this, I'm actually flying to Alabama to go to that meeting. And the SCU team, one of the studies that they did is they studied sightings at military bases, population centers, and nuclear centers, and they've studied those from the 1940s through the 1970s, and they have a series of papers on these things. And they found that the number of sightings at nuclear centers is statistically significant.
You really think so? I've been listening to like a lot of podcasts lately. I mean, for the past 2 days. What's been going on, man?
more higher than the sightings at nearby Army or air bases or population centers. These things are clearly hanging out nuclear sites. And in fact, that happens early on. It starts actually when the nuclear sites were being created, when they started construction, which is really odd, because how did they know, how would anyone know what's going to be made there, right? So it's either clever enough, you're either like clever enough
before the nukes were
actually there, the UFOs were there watching, and they stayed watching through like 1952, and then dropped off and and those levels never came back. So it was clearly we're watching the creation of these nuclear sites.
Has anyone ever talked about or reported on sightings of these things?
In 2 miles, take the exit on the right.
Hundreds of nuclear submarines circling the oceans right now that are just loaded with nukes.
Well, that's a good question, and that's, the two people currently who are looking into that. You've got Richard Dolan's book.
Yeah.
His first book has come out. He's got 2 more coming out. So the first book goes from antiquity back to 1969, I think, is his first book, and the next book will be in the next 20 years or so, and then the third book will be more recent. And you've got Admiral Timothy Gallaudet, who wrote his white paper for the Soul Foundation on submerged objects. I think that's the ignored aspect of UAPs. I mean, UFOs. The UFO, the focus has been on flying, but these things go underwater.
Yeah, and the oceans are less explored than the moon. I think we've
less explored than Mars.
Right.
We know the surface of Mars better than we know the whole surface of Earth.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy. Yeah,
that's insane to think about.
Yeah.
Like 10%, I think, of the ocean floor that we mapped.
Yeah. Water planet.
In half a mile, take the exit on the right.
The solar system next to Uranus, perhaps.
Right.
I mean, it should just be called water or ocean. I mean, if you just, for fun, just take a globe and hold it up so that you're looking at the Pacific Ocean, right? And it is literally the whole circle.
Yeah.
It's a water planet.
One whole side of it is completely
ocean. Take the exit on the right.
It's really amazing when you can see, and for anybody who's flown from Los Angeles.
In half a mile. Keep right at the fort.
Aware of that, because it's 12 hours. You look out the window, it's still water.
Even halfway to Hawaii.
Yeah, it's a lot of water, and we don't know what's under there. We really don't. It's really pretty remarkable.
Well, it is a majority a water planet, but like us, we are the most intelligent life form that we know of that exists here. We're this upright,
keep right at the fork,
hominid that has evolved obviously to survive on Earth. And a lot of these things that we see, a lot of these reports of like beings and stuff, they all look just like us. Bipedal, upright, walking hominids. And if they came from some other planet, like what are the chances that they would evolve to look just like us, right? Like I think we're one of 2 million cataloged species on the Earth. And there's 20 hominids, and out of the 20 variations of hominids, we're one of the 20, so we're like 0.001% of living beings on this Earth, and we're the only one that has been able to figure out how to communicate beyond our Earth and develop technology to be able to leave the Earth. So like just calculating how rare we are on planet Earth, like we haven't been able to find life on other planets, let alone life that evolved to look exactly like the 0.001% of life on this Earth. So, like, what is the percentage of I don't know if you know the answer to this, but like, out of all
in a quarter of a mile, turn right onto the slip road.
Life, how many of them are just complete water worlds, or have more water than we have?
That's a good question. We know that...
Turn right onto the slip road. Then, take the slip road.
Star systems have a planet in what we call the habitable zone, where you could
take the slip road.
Right to have liquid water.
20%.
20% of the stars. So go out tonight, count out 5 stars. One of those stars has a planet in the right place to be able to have liquid water.
Right, okay.
Whether it's a rocky planet or a gas planet, you don't know, and so it might not be habitable.
Right.
But it's in what we call the habitable zone. And water is very common, and very probably many of the terrestrial worlds have oceans or are water worlds in some way. I mean, Venus used to have an ocean. We know that now. My friend Mike Way, who's at NASA, who I met when I went to NASA. Michael Way studies Venus, and he's probably the Venus expert. And so, used to have green oceans, beautiful green oceans. I would love to see something like that.
How long ago?
A lot before it got hot, before the runaway global warming. So
the runaway global warming. Does he have any idea the way?
I don't know what the time periods were, but it's billions of years ago. Yeah. So Venus is interesting that way. Mars used to have liquid water. We know that too. And we know many of the current moons around Jupiter have oceans under ice, right? So Europa has an ice crust with a 60-mile deep ocean rim. So a lot of them are ocean worlds, and you can easily imagine that with ocean worlds being so prevalent, anybody able to come here, if you had life evolve on another planet that could be interested and stellar capable and could come to Earth, they might very well be from an ocean world, in which case our oceans aren't going to be that different from their oceans. Atmospheres are horrible. We live on the surface with an atmosphere. It's a really pretty crappy place to live because, as you know, the environment changes every day.
Yeah.
Right? Yesterday it's cold and rainy, today it's bright and sunny, right? And warm. But atmospheres, the temperature changes dramatically day by day, even within a day. But if you go from planet to planet, it's extremely different. So you go look at Venus, you've got 100 times the air pressure on Earth, crush you. And you've got a carbon dioxide atmosphere. The chemicals are different. Carbon dioxide atmosphere, and it's about 800 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, when I was working at Ames is when the Magellan probe was studying Venus with radar. And one of the big mysteries that came up then was that the mountaintops on Venus became radar reflective when it got cold. So when it got to when the temperatures dropped to 600 degrees or something like this, when it got cold on Venus on the mountaintops, they would become radar reflective. We couldn't figure this out until they figured out it was snow. It was lead and bismuth snow. They have metal snowflakes. So vaporized lead and vaporized bismuth in the atmosphere would crystallize and form snowflakes and fall on the mountaintops. You have metal on the mountaintops, covering metal snowflakes covering mountaintops. That's amazing. That's what a cold day in hell looks like. Right? That's really pretty amazing. I would love to see that, but not with 100 atmospheres of pressure. That's horrible. So Venus is a horrible place to live. And then you go to Mars, and you're about 100 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, right? And you've got 1/100th of the air pressure, so you need a spacesuit. So atmospheres vary dramatically, but if you look at an ocean, the pressure changes 1 atmosphere every 32 feet, right?
Yeah.
So you go down 32 feet, you're at 2 atmospheres. You'd have to go down 3,000 feet. Basically, our oceans are only about 5,000 feet deep. So you go down about 5,000 feet, you're looking at several hundred atmospheres, 1,000 atmospheres, right? On the order of 1,000 atmospheres, or an order of 100 atmospheres. So by the bottom of our oceans, the air pressure, the water pressure is about the same as the air pressure on the surface of Venus.
Right.
Similar, close. I'm talking orders of magnitude here. And so all you need to do is to get the pressure right. You just go down to the right depth, and you'll have the pressure you want, right? And water is always between 0 and 100 degrees centigrade, or between 32 Fahrenheit, right? So otherwise it isn't liquid water, right? So the temperatures don't vary dramatically, but atmospheres they do. On Venus it's 800 degrees, on Mars it's 100 degrees below. So you've got 1,000 degrees in temperature difference.
So no matter what planet you're on, liquid water is going to be relatively
almost the same everywhere. The biggest difference is really going to be the chemical constituents or biology.
Yes.
Biological bacteria or something, which could be bad for you.
Oh, that's fascinating.
That's the only difference. So going from one water world to another would be easy. And in fact, if I was an interstellar traveler preparing to just make a home on another planet and another star system I've never been to, I would bring equipment to live underwater. Because if I would bring what's needed to set up a home underwater. That's where I'd make my home. It would be the best place. You're shielded from radiation. You're shielded from meteorite impacts. You're shielded from all these things. A lot of protective shielding. The oceans are great places to live.
What do you make of the time traveler theory?
None of these theories seem to work. It's really the problem. They don't seem to describe what's going on. Well, time travel is hard because we don't have a theory of time travel. So it's equally difficult, or maybe more so than the whole what drive problem, right? Or anti-gravity problem. So I'm not sure what to make of that.
What is the idea of time travel that you can't travel back farther than when the first time machine was created?
Yeah, according to general relativity. So general relativity is a theory of general quantum, basically what you're talking about.
Right. So if we're seeing hypothetical time travelers right now, that means time travel has to exist. It has to be created at least right now.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's also possible.
That could be the $20 trillion right there. But
that could be the $20 trillion.
That could be the $20 trillion. But then
when did that go missing? 1995.
But that doesn't explain the reports 150 years ago.
That doesn't explain that, right? But unless time travel was figured out on another planet,
another way, so something like that could happen. So they could be extraterrestrial time travel.
Then you have to have both. It has to be extraterrestrial time travel.
Yeah, and that's where these explanations they get messy because the data, what we know, really doesn't have a good explanation. And I think that we haven't come up with a simple explanation yet that describes everything, and that's what makes it hard. But I think that's also why disclosure isn't easy, because all these questions are going to come up with disclosure, and I bet nobody has the answer.
Yeah.
You really have to study these things for a long time with a lot of people to get answers, and it's hard.
What do you make of the idea that, because there was, how long ago was that whole New Jersey drone incident where we had all those drones?
Oh, it started in late October, I think.
Yeah, that
went through about end of February-ish.
End of February, just this past year. This exact year we're in right now. They did it.
And it wasn't just New Jersey. That was actually an interesting thing. Of course, the FAA comes up with some statement they're testing drones or something, which that's nonsense because they were seen off the coast of Oregon and Seattle too. Those were actually
and Florida, I think.
And they were seen in about 17 countries.
Mm-hmm.
Really? It was global. Yeah. It's a problem. Yeah. Again, we don't have a good explanation for what happened.
Yeah, and there was people trying to speculate it was like non-human, and but if it wasn't. They weren't traveling at any kind of crazy speeds. They weren't making maneuvers.
Some of the sightings in Seattle, off the coast of Seattle and Oregon, sounded like non-human craft. But those were more isolated. There was a lot more going on in New Jersey, but partly because it's more populated, and I think you've got a lot more misidentifications happening.
Yeah.
I remember seeing photographs of a craft, and my brother's very good with airplanes. I sent him this. I said, "What do you think this is?" He goes, "Oh, this is this kind of helicopter," and he sent me pictures of this helicopter. Yeah, it matches that helicopter. So there were a lot of misidentifications.
Yeah.
And a lot of UFO enthusiasts would say, "Well, it wasn't really a helicopter, it's disguising itself as a helicopter." And I was like, "Oh, please, at some point you have to,
would it be that hard?
Let's just calm down and actually collect data on these things so we can actually figure this out instead of just guessing all the time."
Yeah, I can't imagine it would be that hard to send somebody up there to figure out what the hell they were. I mean, if we wanted to know what they were, somebody could have figured that out very easily.
Yeah, and actually, Ben Kugielski from our UAPX team, he's a pilot, and he actually performed some flights over New Jersey in that area to try to see if he could see these things from the air. And just weren't successful.
They weren't successful.
Yeah. He just didn't see any. That's all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I saw.
They weren't that common, but they were common enough that people were seeing them. I mean, you've got several million people in the area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
right field shut down their runways because of these things, and there was even one that crashed. I think we found something. Steve, I don't remember. We found like a photo of one that allegedly crashed, and it was like we tracked down the company, and it was a company based out of somewhere in the Northeast that was manufacturing drones that were powered by, I can't remember the name, but it was some sort of chemical that was powering these drones. I want to say hydrogen, maybe hydrogen powered drones, but like it showed like a police officer holding, like a couple police officers holding this thing. It was like the size, a quadcopter that was like the size of this table.
Wow,
Maybe,
wow, that's
like
amazing.
maybe it had 6 propellers on it or something like that. But it looked like something, standard. It didn't look like anything crazy.
I think what was going on was more standard things were happening in New Jersey. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of air activity in the area. The point outside is that we're still there. I live in New York, so it would be, for me, it's just over that way, but not from Florida.
There it is. NYPD recovers massive drone found abandoned. Click on that. That's cool. Okay, so it was the New York Post that posted on it. From the tri-state area. Scroll down. Police recovered that was the one we found for sure. Go up.
102-year-old boy swept.
Massive drone apparently abandoned in a Brooklyn Navy yard. Photo obtained by the Post shows NYPD officer holding up the unwieldy aircraft, the body of which appears to be more than 5 feet in diameter. Cops responded to the email tip alerting them to the presence of the drone, which they found on a sidewalk on 5th Street between Market Street and Morris Avenue.
Wow, so it was actually found in Brooklyn. That's crazy.
There was, look at that thing. But remember when we were looking at it, they were able to track down the name of the company that manufactured them.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the manufacturer.
Ammonia. Look. Officers were investigating passersby said he worked in the building that houses the headquarters of the drone's manufacturer, which he identified as Amogy Inc., a sustainable energy startup working using ammonia as a renewable fuel source, including aerial vehicles.
That's interesting.
You ever heard of that before? Anything like that before?
No, I haven't. Yeah, and that's something to be. I'm glad to learn this because it's important to be aware of what's in the air if you're going to study what's in the air, right?
Yeah.
You have to learn about all these things. So, and I think especially around New Jersey that was hard because there were. I'm sure once the reports of these unknown objects were coming out, a lot of people who own drones are like, now's a great time to go fly my drone. And then they send up their drones, and the next thing you know, it's a mess, right? So,
but I think the United States military had to have known what that was, or else there would have been some sort of like state of emergency, or they would have been getting rid of it. It couldn't have been a foreign actor. They wouldn't let us stay up for that long. Even like Trump was talking about it because they were flying over his golf course,
right?
And they were flying like over some sort of military base in North Carolina, and they simply would not allow that to be there if it was something they didn't understand or weren't aware of.
I would hope so, but yeah.
And there was also some sort of
so we have these things flying over Malmstrom Air Force Base, shutting down nuclear missiles, and no one did anything about it for decades.
Not those, though.
But not those things.
Those were something that were really unexplainable.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's part of what makes these things complicated. An unidentified object could be many things, right? And a lot of them can be conflated, and that makes it hard.
There's some, like, even going back to Roswell, right? Like in 1947 when that thing crashed, like we still don't even know what happened with that, right? There's still like so much speculation on what happened. There's like, there's a handful of different theories of what happened, and no one can agree on anything except for the fact that it probably wasn't weather, right? There was allegedly there was the guy who wrote the book on Roswell, day after Roswell. He explained. Yes, it was like an intro book. He explained there being Kevlar and Velcro in this crash. Like clearly man-made technology that was found. That no one ever talks about that. Like if this was some sort of interstellar craft, why were they using Velcro and Kevlar?
Yes. Well, I thought he had mentioned he was claiming that they developed Kevlar from what was found in the craft, but I didn't know about the Velcro part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read his book, so I don't know those details. I'd seen an interview with him.
Right.
Yeah, no, that whole thing is a real mess because you've got the U.S. government coming out with multiple statements throughout the years, changing the story every time. Right. And one of my favorite ones from the early 1990s was an Air Force statement that said they were testing a Mars lander and the disk was the back shell of the lander. I was testing a Mars lander in 1947 10 years before Sputnik.
Right.
That's a ridiculous thing to even say. It doesn't make any sense. And so clearly a lie, right? And then after that, came out. They came up with Project Mogul, but Project Mogul is a weather balloon problem. What they were trying to do with Project Mogul is they wanted to put radio wave detectors up so that they could detect the electromagnetic radiation from nuclear explosions from Soviet bomb testing, right? So, but the problem is you wanted to hold these balloons at something like 50,000 feet. The problem with balloons is you let the thing go up, and the balloon goes up and up and up, and as the balloon goes up, the air pressure outside goes down, so the balloon gets bigger and expands and eventually breaks and the thing falls. So Project Mogul was about trying to figure out how to maintain a certain altitude for a balloon. And so they were releasing test balloons, right? They're trying to be up at 50,000 feet. And the claim is that the balloon that was launched in early June, the balloon that was launched in early June was the one that crashed on Mac Brazel's farm or ranch in Roswell, up near Roswell, New Mexico. But the problem is that when you look at the records of the New York University professor who was running Project Mogul, they didn't launch a balloon in June. They couldn't launch. The weather was bad, so they didn't launch. Yeah, so there was no balloon up. And had they done it, it would have been an illegal thing to do because the conditions weren't right to be able to monitor the position of the balloon. It wouldn't have been a good experiment anyway. So they didn't even have a balloon up. We have those records, so we know it wasn't Project Mogul. But Kirkpatrick in Arrow comes out with his report and says again it's Project Mogul, which we know it's not. So we know the government has been changing the story every time and lying every time. So what actually happened is a good question. I mean, what was so serious that when the Army found that the sheriff in the area went to the ranch to look at the debris himself, they found that out and they detained him and his family for 5 days. What warrants that? A radio balloon experiment? Really?
Yeah.
It's hard to believe.
This is the paradox of trying to rely on the government to give us any sort of confirmation about any of this stuff.
Exactly.
Right? This is the paradox of it because, they have been clearly trying to deceive and, muddy up the waters of this topic forever.
Yeah.
So trying to rely on them is something that's, it's futile, it feels like. It's just like...
I think it's a waste of time.
I think so too.
Plus there are other governments on the planet. Other governments who actually know things.
Yeah.
So let's work with them. Come on to talk to the Chileans. Maybe they'll talk. They've collected information. I'd rather spend time with other governments than wasting time with this one.
But a lot of those governments are subservient to the U.S. government.
And that is a problem.
Yeah. I've heard stories that this whole topic, there's like zero stigma when it comes to this stuff in like Russia, for example. Like even like the government and the population, they're all into like esoteric, UFOs, astrology, and all this stuff. And
they go through waves like we do, and we talk about that Russia a little bit in our paper. We didn't have the French co-authors produced a lot of the material on the Russians. science. We talked about that in the paper, and they'd gone through phases where they would start studying UFOs, and then somebody would say that's ridiculous, and they would shut it down, and then they would start up again and shut it down, kind of like what happens here. It goes up and down a good bit.
And who were the folks that you got the information from in Russia? Like, were there certain...
Oh, these were from documents from...
Oh, actual documents.
Actual documents, yeah. So we learned a little bit about what went on there, but a lot of it's not known. The Soviet Union was pretty tight-lipped about everything it did, so...
Yeah.
I don't think, like the U.S. government, you're never going to find out what the Russians knew.
Right.
It's a problem.
Right. Yeah, and then, there's lots of cases that happen in, like, South America where, like, even stuff that Jacques Vallée has written about that's, like, really frightening stuff. And I'm sure you're familiar with James Fox's documentary about Brazil.
In Brazil,
what was the name of this?
It sounds like sulfur. Everybody thinks it's a demon.
Yeah.
They're always great descriptions.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
That was Varginha.
Varginha, that's right.
That's
what it was.
Brazil. Yeah. And it's like, the stories like that are the ones that, like, that just doesn't fit into any box.
Yeah, they're weird. And then there's the explosion in Ubatuba in Brazil where they saw a disc coming in. These fishermen saw a disc coming in that then pulls up. Looks like it's going to crash into the ocean. It pulls up just at the last minute and then just explodes, and then left debris, and they collected debris, and that's been analyzed by multiple people by this point. And
has it?
Yeah, it's magnesium.
We have it. We can look at it.
Yeah, it exists.
And it's like
I don't have it in my possession, but
or is it like locked away in the government?
No, there are other researchers have it. I don't know. I know that Robert Powell from SCU has studied it and wrote a paper on it with Phyllis Budinger, who's a physical chemist who's worked on a lot of cases.
Is that kind of stuff material? Is that kind of material something that would be able to be created on Earth?
It was very pure magnesium, which would have been very hard to purify back when it exploded, which I don't remember exactly what the date was,
but not impossible.
But not impossible, probably, yeah. But it would be very expensive and very hard, so it's hard to imagine that somebody made a craft of this and then it blew up, and it's one heck of a story still.
It is.
Yeah.
It is one heck of a story. But some of this stuff is like, when you have things that you have people talking about demons smelling like sulfur running around the woods and getting people sick.